Welcome to the Inside Out Money Podcast.
Can't even recognize this place. Too many pieces of our past mistakes.
Hi, I'm Maggie, and I believe real change starts from the inside out. So let's work together to improve our money and our lives from the inside out. We will explore all things money and our relationship with it. Join me each week with a rotating set of co-hosts, friends, and interviews. Let's jump in.
It's time, we going round and round and round and round and round.
Hey, Liz.
Hi, Maggie. Good morning.
Good morning. Have you ever had a windfall?
Ooh.
Wait, don't answer that. Don't answer that.
You being my friend a nice windfall?
Oh, that's nice.
Oh.
I was going to say don't answer it like you're about to tell a story of a windfall. I mean, it is a nice windfall. I mean a financial windfall.
Yes.
But since we talk about finance, I guess us becoming friends could be a financial windfall.
I think it was it was a financial windfall because just last week I was having a weird tax situation and I was complaining to you about it. And then you just explained the whole thing to me. So
yeah, well, in a minute, we'll give you guys a disclaimer about how you shouldn't take tax advice from us. But yes. But Liz, you can take tax advice from me. Just make sure you remember the disclaimer that I'm not a tax professional. Okay. So if you're like, what's going on? Where am I? Welcome to Inside Out Money. Welcome. This is a personal finance podcast focused on redefining wealth from the inside out. I mean, it's like inside your body, out to your like actions, you know, in case you didn't make that connection.
Got it.
Every week, I speak with a rotating set of co-hosts about a different financial topic, hopefully one that helps you improve your financial mindset and tactics. And today, we've got Liz here, also known as Liz Gets Loaded from Instagram or real life.
Or real life.
And
all my friends call me that.
Yeah, she's real. And we are going to discuss how to handle a windfall, from like taxes to setting goals to where to put that money. And then also pitfalls you should avoid and just everything you need to know about windfalls, large and small.
So you're like ready when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
A quick disclaimer before we dive in. We're just two people with microphones. Did you know they let literally anyone make a podcast?
Anyone.
Literally anyone. So we're proof. We just have microphones sitting here. They're actually not crystal balls. We are not financial wizards. We do not have certificates of any kind. I like to say that I'm your smart friend. Like I'm an enthusiast, but I didn't go to school for this. I've just spent thousands of hours reading about it online.
Yeah. And I know how to Google things also.
I am really good at Googling things. And I had a little bit of life experience. So the information.
I've had a little bit more life experience than you.
You have a little bit more. That's true.
Just a little bit. That was just a joke that I'm a little bit
I am
older.
an elder millennial. Maggie is like the eldest millennial. I think she's Gen X, but she doesn't like when I say that.
No, I'm both.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's so many different. Okay, we're getting off.
Okay,
topic.
sorry. Anyways, listen, we just know a little bit about a lot of things. And the information that we share is for entertainment. It's for discussion. We're not financial advisors. We're not your financial advisors for sure. So you shouldn't take this as financial advice. Your money, your choices, your financial situation, like it's unique. There are as many different financial situations as there are people who listen to podcasts, and you're solely responsible for your financial decisions. So always do your own research, consult with a qualified professional before making any financial choices. Basically, we're just here to chat. We're not here to manage your portfolio.
Yeah, we're not here to manage your windfall, even though we are going to talk about what we would do if we got a windfall and things we consider.
I often think of it that way. Like when I'm talking online about money, I'm mostly just talking about what I would do, and I'm not wagging my finger at you, but
yeah.
Anyways.
Okay, well, let's start with defining a windfall.
Okay.
Because it's interesting, like Liz suggested this topic. And well, first off, okay, windfall is like a significant amount of money that is received unexpectedly. Could be large, could be small. Liz, when you suggested this episode, I think you were thinking smaller. And then when I was starting to work it out, I was even thinking bigger, like, you know, Just it's all relative and subjective what's large and small anyways, based on your financial situation, you know?
Right.
Some people could think a windfall is $1,000. Some people could think it's $1 million.
Yeah, completely. I was thinking in terms of your bonus at work or a tax refund. And then Maggie was like, what if you won $20 million in the lottery? And I think a lot of the same principles apply.
Well, I was more even thinking, like, we'll talk about the lotto example because that is very, very unique. But a lot of times a windfall comes from something sad. So like the death of a family member or like a medical malpractice settlement. Or it could just be something like not happy or sad, right? Just life, like selling a property, some work, stock options vested or something like that. But there's just so many different things a windfall could come from. And again, like small or large.
Yeah, probably the one, I mean, really the windfall that like got me into personal finance more seriously was when I sold my first house and I was sitting on a couple $100,000 and I didn't know what to do.
And you weren't going to like rebuy a house right away?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, what do I do with this? And I Googled how to invest like X amount of dollars. And all the results were like, buy a laundromat.
Buy a car wash. Sounds like Breaking Bad.
And then I saw something somewhere that said basically you should just think of this as a continuous income stream. Like you shouldn't think of it as X amount of dollars. You should think of it as whatever 4% of it is.
Yeah.
You get that much income for the rest of your life. And that was kind of my first aha moment about how investing.
That's so fascinating that there's like a specific thing or moment that or situation that like triggered you to then go Google something to learn more, to like go deeper into, you know, how to manage money and get better with your money, or like, you know, get more thoughtful or more strategic with it. Because I can't really point to one thing, you know. It's neat that you can remember that.
Yeah. No, I remember like where I was. I was like, wait, if you have a big pile of money, that's a little bit of money every year for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Now it's interesting. We'll talk about that because there are times where you actually get to choose how to receive a windfall, and that could be from a, you know, settlement or the lottery or something like that.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about thoughts on that. But
yeah, but for a lot of us, it's going to be, again, things like tax refund, bonus at work. Maybe you got a refund on something. Maybe you sold a house, or maybe you win the lottery.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So if you won the lottery or a big amount of money, or a lottery size amount of money from something else, would you tell people?
Tell
like the average
no
person. Yeah. Would you follow that? I mean, you tell like your partner.
Yeah.
You tell me, right?
I would probably tell you.
Okay. It just didn't seem like you were sure about that.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just
I mean,
kidding. You don't have to tell me.
I probably would, but I think here's the thing. I think I'd be so good at winning the lottery. Like, I think I'd know exactly what to do.
Not at how to win, but like what to do with the money.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be good at winning the lottery because I think you have to play.
Yeah, you have to buy tickets on a regular at least once basis.
At least once, yeah. But I think I'd be good. I would tell no one. I would just throw the money into my investments. But I don't know. Would you tell anyone?
I would certainly not tell. I don't know if I'd follow the tell no one rule. Like I might tell a couple of, you know, like my mom and people I trust that would not, you know, we'll get into like why the advice is tell no one. But I would tell people that I trusted closely, you know.
Mm-hmm. Would you tell me?
Yeah, I'd tell you because I'm not like I would tell the people I'm not like worried about it would in any way like change my relationship with them.
Yeah.
You know,
I think I would tell you eventually, but I would probably just sit on it for, I don't know, 6 months or a year before.
I certainly wouldn't tell anyone until the money was like here
in my
account.
Real, yeah.
You know, yeah. Like,
because how embarrassing would it be if you were like, I was wrong. That was a 7,
bad.
not a 9.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I was like reading a little bit about windfalls because every now and then I try to prepare for these episodes. You know, sometimes, not always. Sometimes I just use what's already up in this noggin right here, which is hit or miss on any given day.
There's a lot up there.
There's so much, and it's just sort of all swishing around, and sometimes the good comes out, sometimes nonsense comes out. But like, I hadn't thought about this, but like getting a big sum of money can trigger a lot of emotions from people, right? Like, obviously there can be like excitement, but there's also like a lot of like fear and anxiety. And like, given my experience of how the average person doesn't necessarily know how to deal with like their 401k and what to invest it in, they definitely don't know how to deal with a windfall of unexpected money. There's so many things that we're tempted to do with it, you know, and then there's also just this general like fear and anxiety of not knowing what they should do with it and how to handle it and all of that. So I just was interesting because I hadn't really thought about that like I just similar to you of how you said, you know, you'd be so good at winning lottery, you know what you would do. So it wouldn't necessarily trigger that, but to the average person, it would create just a lot of anxiety because just a lot of decisions that need to be made and a lot of things taxes and things they haven't, that the average person does not know about and does not know what to do with.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I think this topic is kind of interesting, because for the average run-of-the-mill day-to-day windfall, like, again, getting a tax refund, getting a bonus at work, even I get Christmas money from my parents every year. They give me $1,000, which I love so much. I emotionally and mentally treat that money differently. And I think it's very human to treat a lump sum of money and think, I want to do something specific with this. Like it is much debated about whether it's better to get a bigger tax refund or not, or whether it's better to get a smaller one, like free loan to the government versus people are more likely to make smarter decisions when you have a lump of money. So if you get that 500, even $1,000, a couple $1,000 back, you might say, oh, I'm going to use this money to pay off my student loans, or, well, if they were small, to pay off this loan, or to fund my IRA, or pay off my car, or something like that. It's a lot easier to take that lump versus small amounts that are distributed over a longer amount of time, even if it's, you know, it's the same amount of money. It's just very human to treat that money differently, mentally and emotionally.
I read this stat and I was really surprised by it. I had roughly like anecdotally heard that there's like a lot of people that win the lottery, specifically the lottery, just like spend it really quickly and it's like gone very quickly somehow, because the average person isn't equipped at how to handle that and how to, you know, think of it like as more of an annuity, not a big lump sum, like you were saying. And I just was fascinated by the actual stat. And, you know, you never know like how accurate things like this are, but the stat was that 70% of lottery winners exhaust their fortunes within 3 years, which is like fast, you know? I don't know what the average lottery winning was, but that just seemed high to me. It was less than 3 years. It was more the 70%. And it made me think of some real people. Do you remember? Can you imagine who I'm thinking of? They're not lottery winners, but they blew through a lot of money fast.
Oh, yeah. You're thinking of Haley and Justin from The Price of Avocado.
Yeah. And they actually and I really like them. They talk about this very openly, so I'm not like talking smack about them. But they got like $600,000, I think, from a medical malpractice that was associated with like the death of one of their grandparents or something like that. And they, in their like 20s, got $600,000. And we actually had them on Friends on Fire on episode 93. And the title of the episode was How to Blow $600,000 with the Price of Avocado Toast, which is the name of their podcast. And they talk really openly about how like, yeah, they didn't know what to do with it. And they blew through it very quickly and not necessarily on things that have a like lasting memory, like more on a lot of regrets. It's not like they like bought a house and now forever have that home and, you know, it was a great investment and all that. It was just like gone pretty quickly. And it's a good example of like, it's not just lottery winners. Lots of people end up with windfalls and aren't equipped at what to do with it. So let's jump into like what you should actually do if you get a windfall.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do think I was trying to remember. I swear I just read something somewhere. I was frantically trying to find it. I think it can be two things. I think a number of lottery winners probably are ill-equipped to handle it. And I was reading about how we all like love this idea that lottery winners end up miserable because it sort of makes us feel better about the fact that like we didn't win the lottery. And that actually most lottery winners I think end up, they're fine.
Yeah. That doesn't sound very nice. I'm not like happy. I mean, I know what you mean. That's an interesting point, but I'm not like happy when somebody, you know, botches their lottery winnings and it's all gone quickly, unless they enjoyed every moment of it.
Well, I think the good news is that most people don't. I think like overall, there's some number of people who do, but most lottery winners end up like 5 years later, they're happier than they were before they won the lottery. So that's the good news.
That's good. That kind of negates that stat I just shared, but
Yeah, I think that
I don't know if it's accurate.
I think I was trying to say nicely. I don't think it is accurate.
Oh,
But
that's fine. I don't even know what the source is. So like many things, the source is Google. So
some people might be good or bad at winning the lottery, but after listening to this episode, you're going to be
everybody will be. Yeah.
Everybody's going to be good.
Yeah. Okay. So the first things are you really should, I would say this is true whether it's small or large, like just pause, like don't make any immediate decisions, like take some time, avoid anything immediate or impulsive. You don't have to do anything right away. And like the amount of time, might be relative to the amount of money, right? If it's a smaller amount of money, like just take a couple days, sit on it, think for a minute. There's just no reason that you need to make any hasty choice unless you've got some, 135% debt you're throwing it against that's just so obvious, or you're just ready for like, you knew that your bonus was coming and you knew that you were going to put it against paying off some high interest credit card debt or something like that. But most people should just take some time to pause and reflect and think about what they should do.
Especially if it is something like an inheritance or related to a tragedy. I mean, I've read some the common advice is something like 6 months to a year of just do nothing, like let your emotions regulate, give yourself some time.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then I think, the other thing is we already said this, but like best practice says don't tell anyone, right? Like tell as few people as necessary. Obviously, like maybe your partner. I don't know. There's some people that might not even tell their partner.
Oh, no.
But I don't know. I do tend to think you're better off having open discussions about money. And we've had many episodes where we talk about the importance of financial communication in relationships. So we're not implying don't tell your partner. If you don't want to tell your partner, there's probably a bigger issue there that you might want to look into. But yeah, you don't need like, unwanted solicitations or like it putting a potential strain on a friendship because now people are asking you to borrow money and
right.
You just the idea is that like there's more harm comes from telling people than good. I'll put it that way.
Exactly. And I think another reason is you'll end up with people in your ear. We did a whole episode about bad financial advice. And, you tell someone, oh, I'm coming into $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. And you've got someone who's like, oh, I just read this great article. And by that, I mean, I saw something on TikTok about how you should put it all into crypto. And that's how you afford your Ferraris and all this silliness.
Yeah. I think people will come at you with all sorts of investment opportunities that they didn't have before. But now that they know you have money, you're an attractive potential source of it for them.
Right. So. I mean, either for themselves or they just think that they're being helpful and they are trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. It could be your uncle who's a financial planner and is like, oh, look, I'm going to give, hey son, I'm going to give you some advice. And,
Right. Or someone who's even like, oh, you should just pay off your mortgage, even though it's like 1% or something, which may or may not be the right choice for you. So just sit on it.
Okay. So what happens after I sit on it and I don't tell anyone?
Well, then this is the part where I always laugh a little bit because there's throughout the year, I'll see, I consume a lot of personal finance content and I'll see these posts like what to do with your tax refund, what to do with your bonus, what to do with whatever. And it's all the same advice. It's all the same things you should just do with any other money. Number one, like create an emergency fund if you don't have one already, 6 to 12 months of expenses. And we have an episode about that. We'll link in the show notes.
Yeah, it's episode 55.
Oh, 55.
Liz gives a really good formula for how to really like calculate what the size of your emergency fund. But yeah, 6 to 12 months is a good average size.
Right. And then Maggie mentioned this already, but if you have any super high interest debt, then that's the next thing you want to take care of, right? If you've got credit card debt, if you've got some kind of, payday loan or what's other like obvious debt that you would pay off?
I think it's just high interest, right? Whether there's a lot of different types of loans you could have that are high interest, but we're not talking about, I'd say the two things we're not necessarily talking about are your mortgage or your student loans. And I'm not saying eventually you wouldn't want to consider paying them off depending on the amount of money you got. Right. We're just saying like when we say take a beat, don't just immediately throw it at that because it may not be the, smartest thing for you to do with your money in the long term.
Right. Yeah, fully agree.
But we did we mentioned this briefly, but even while you're sitting on it, I would put those funds, the second you get those funds, I would have them sitting in a high yield cash account. Personally. I mean, you also could consider like a short-term CD or money market or other things that get similar percentages. But me personally, I would put it into a high yield cash account because it's completely liquid. I can get to it whenever I want once I have my longer term plan for that money. Right now, you're going to get about 4.5%. We're big fans of Wealthfront or M1. We'll put links in the show notes to those if they're helpful referral links that give you a kind of boost in interest from them. But right away, you should, like, while you're sitting on it and while you're pausing and not telling anyone, you can earn over 4% interest. So
yeah, it's got to go somewhere. So don't put it under your mattress.
And it shouldn't just sit in a checking account.
Right, exactly.
It should sit in something that is earning you the best rate you can get while still keeping it fully liquid and protected, right? Those accounts are FDIC insured and they're not going anywhere.
Yep, 100%. All right. So the next thing to think about, you may or may not have to think about taxes. And again, this is the part of the show, which is the reason we read the disclaimer at the beginning. We're not tax professionals, but you may have a situation where you already know how the taxes are handled. Like if it's your tax refund, if it's your bonus, you probably don't need to do any special tax homework. If it's an inheritance, if it's a life insurance payout, if it's you sold your company, if it's you sold a book, if it's
you sold a house. But honestly, most windfalls would come with tax implications. I say more would come with tax implications than wouldn't.
I agree.
So you often are going to owe federal or state taxes on it, and they could be quite high depending on the size of it. And many people are often surprised. I mean, even when you get a bonus at work, it's not taxed quite the same as your paycheck, and depending on the size of it, you often can owe more from it. And so
it's not withheld the same way, right?
Yes, it's not withheld the same way. Thank you.
Sorry, that's like a personal.
No, that's accurate.
It drives me bananas when people say like your bonus gets taxed higher. They're like, oh, it's not even worth getting a bonus because it gets taxed higher. And I'm like, no, it just gets push up my glasses at my nose. And I go, actually, it just gets withheld differently.
Yes. And yeah, so you could owe ordinary income taxes on it. You could owe capital gains. We sold a rental property last year and we owed capital gains on it. And just to use like a personal example too, even when you know about the taxes and realize it's happening and have like a rough estimate in your head, like we sold a property last year, kind of had a rough estimate in our head, but that was like, 7-8 months ago. And now we're doing our taxes and it like feels like a new piece of information to us. We're like, oof, we knew it. We both knew it. We had two, intelligent consenting adults that sold that property and knew we would owe taxes on it and had and we even like prepaid some of the taxes on it. And we were doing our taxes and Greg's like, oof, it's a lot. And, and it was a mix of like taxes and medical insurance and like a bunch of, capital gains and medical insurance and just a few things I sold some stocks, some things that were adding up, but we knew it all happened. We knew we would owe taxes on it. And my point is it can still surprise you. So you really should, figure out what the tax situation is going to be on that, set that money aside. So yeah, I think it's just a reminder to figure out the tax situations. This might be a situation where you need to consult with a CPA, again, deciding depending on the size of the windfall and set that money aside in a different way. I mean, even when you're in like Wealthfront and you have a high yield cash account, you can create all these kind of like, they don't call it this, but they're like parent-child accounts. We actually use it for our kids' accounts. And you can have it show up differently when you log into the app where it has like sub accounts. And we should have done that for the taxes because then just mentally every time we open it, we're like, oh, that's not our money. Yeah. That's the government's money and they're going to come for it in April.
Right. Because again, we think of lump sums of money, like we're so differently emotionally attached to them than we are little amounts, right? If you were just paying however much it was, if you were paying a little bit every month, you just like wouldn't think of it in the same way as when you have to write that big check at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I sold company stock last year. It's funny. I was looking back. So I did it in March, not knowing my 2024 ended up like being like extremely chaotic. And so I sold the stock and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to figure out how much I'm going to owe on this. And then I'm going to set the money aside. And And then my year kind of like blew up in my face and I never came back to it. And now I'm doing my taxes and I'm like, oh yeah, I knew I was going to have to pay this money, but like, ugh.
Yeah, I know. It just feels different.
It does feel different. And I think maybe our ultimate lesson is like, you actually don't know the final answer until you've filed your tax return.
Yeah, because it's highly dependent. That's a great point. And when you consult with a CPA, they'll tell you that. But it's highly dependent on a ton of other things that happen throughout the year, right?
Right,
What your
right.
income is, yeah.
Yeah, because I could have sold that company stock in March. I could have won the lottery in November, and that would have totally changed everything.
Would have been a bad year
Been a bad year.
That's why I waited till like December 30th to sell some stock that I sold.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Which isn't always good because timing wise, I mean, it happened to be a good time to sell it also.
Yeah.
I sold high, but okay.
That's fair.
So once you've thought about taxes and figured out the tax situation, this is where, depending on the size of the money, you want to like think about some of your goals in life and what you want to do with this money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like long-term, short-term.
Right. And again, I think it feels different when you have a lump sum of money, but a lot of the order of operations is generally the same. Like Maggie, you put in our show notes kind of what your order of operations would be. And I would say this is generally not just what you want to do for a windfall, but like how you want to treat all money that comes into your life. Like make sure you pay taxes, fund your emergency fund, pay off high interest debt, fund your retirement or your investments, and then like any other project that's important to you.
Open a brokerage account and, start investing beyond just maxing out your 401k and HSA.
Mm-hmm.
Then think about charitable giving. There's so many. Yeah, I agree. The path of what you do with a windfall is actually almost in most situations quite identical to what you do with your paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So every 2 weeks you get a windfall, right?
Exactly.
Like, what do you do with that?
What a lovely way to think of our paycheck.
Yeah, hopefully. It's funny. It reminds me of this guy I used to work with who I really like. His name's Chris. Shout out, Chris, if you're listening.
Hi, Chris.
And he was really funny. And at work, when people would talk about like, I don't know when he would bring this up, but people would talk about like moving to a 4-day work week or to like time off or vacation. And he was like, you guys, we get 2 days off every week.
Oh, gosh.
I know. You get Saturday and Sunday. He's joking, but he's like, we get Saturday and Sunday off. And like, that's pretty cool. And so I think of that. I'm like, you get a windfall every other week or perhaps once a month. Depends on how, what cycle you get paid on.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you don't have a job right now. So not everybody, or you don't, not everybody gets a windfall every other week, I should
Correct.
say. So.
Correct.
Anyways, moving on.
But yeah, I think all the normal boring stuff, right? And it's just like with your paycheck, you have to have taxes taken out first. Then you should make sure you have your emergency fund, pay off debt, fund your retirement. And then after that, it starts to get like a little bit interesting in terms of what your financial goals are, right? Like my number one financial goal is to be financially independent and to have enough money invested that I can be work optional. But yours might be different. Yours might be, I'm trying to fund 529s for my kids' college, or it might be I'm trying to save for a down payment for a house, or I want to buy a new car, or
there's a business you always wanted to start. You always had this idea and you just need, $20,000 to get it off the ground. And this windfall might have given you that amount of money, and I think, like our advice is make sure you do all those other things before you spend the 20,000.
Right. Maybe
launching this business idea you've always had.
Maybe you always wanted to buy a Peloton rower. And they're expensive.
Maybe you had dreams like that, dreams like Liz has a Peloton rower, by the way.
I know, but I thought about buying
new here.
6 months before I bought it. And then I waited.
And she used one of her paycheck windfalls to buy it.
And I actually used my Christmas money windfall it wasn't enough to cover the whole cost, but in my head, $3,500 was like too much for a rower, but $2,500 felt reasonable.
Just right.
Right. So
thanks, Mom and Dad.
Thanks,
Liz Gets Loaded. Mr. and Mrs. Liz Gets Loaded. Mom, Dad. I don't know what to call them.
I do. Yeah, I did tell them. I told them in real life too, because they're not big podcast listeners, to be clear.
They don't listen to the podcast?
I don't know if they listen to any podcast.
My mom listens to the podcast. Hey, Mom.
I know. Your mom's so sweet. I love her so much.
You only got to meet her for like 5 minutes, though, while you were here.
Yeah, but in those 5 minutes, she was like, let me see your face. Here's some water. Here's some apples. Here's some chocolate.
Oh, yeah, because you don't show your face. That was her number one goal, is like, you had a hat on. She's like, take your hat off. Let me see your face. I don't get to see it online.
Yeah.
She was
like,
very
what does your face look like? Let me see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can think about all your different goals. And, going back to my aha moment, what I was reading about, again, I kind of fell down a rabbit hole on the internet of people talking about what they had done with windfalls and how they had treated different lump sums of money. And someone said, if you get $200,000, like, you shouldn't think of it as I have $200,000. You should think of it as I have almost $700 a month for the rest of my life, which is a calculation based on the 4% rule, which we talk about a lot in terms of retirement planning. And that, again, was just such an aha moment for me. So rather than thinking like, okay, if you had $200,000, okay, like, let's say, I don't know, 60 or 70K as taxes, then I could buy a car, then I have this much left over and I could take a nice vacation, versus I have this income stream for the rest of my life if I handle this appropriately.
Yeah, and if you want to know what Liz is talking about when she says the 4% rule, we have a whole episode 22, where we talk about the 4% rule specifically. So you can go check that out if you'd like.
I was about to say, Maggie, we should do an episode about the 4% rule. I was gonna tease Erica.
You sound like Erica, yeah.
I know.
It's more of a tee up. I'm like, when she says it, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. We have done an episode. What a great tee up to that we've already done this.
Honestly, I can't remember every episode we've done, but I just imagine at this point, I'm like, we've done an episode about that, right?
No joke. I'm only jokingly giving Erica a hard time because I can't remember them so much that Andrew and I almost recorded an episode last night, and we were talking about it, and I had like started writing out the show notes. And then as I was writing them, I was like, this feels familiar. And I went and used some different words and searched our notes and was like, wait a minute, we called it something different, but we did this exact same episode. We were going to do an order of operations episode, but we had done it, but we called it like the investment walk, is a different way of phrasing it. And but it's the exact same content.
Wait,
but it was like 65 episodes ago. So I was like, who would remember what happened, over a year ago?
That also you did re-record an episode on the same topic.
Oh yeah, that was on a little more on purpose. That was around like gifts and the holiday. Wasn't around the holidays?
No, it was you recorded an episode with Erica about like end of year financial to-dos.
Oh yeah.
I was listening to it like, Maggie, you and I did this episode last year.
Yeah, different year though. Different year, different person.
What to do at the end of 2024, totally different than what to do at the end of 2024.
Yeah, I know. Well, sometimes I'll like purposefully do things where like, Andrew and I did one on like what's happening with the market, and like, and we've kind of done, sometimes it's also like we've done a Friends on Fire one, and I'm like, well, we can definitely repeat those because like, new pod, different people.
I think it's all good. I think it's fine.
Yeah. I even told Andrew when we were doing that, I was like, well, we can still do it if you want, but it's this, like, we've already done it. We'll just put a new spin on it and remind people. We didn't. We did something fresh, but
I mean, I would have listened to it either way, but
I'd be curious to see how many people actually noticed like this is a repeat.
I mean, I bet 0 people messaged you and were like, Maggie, you did an end of year episode last year.
Yeah. Every year I'm going to do an end of year episode with a different person. Makes it a little bit of a different spin.
I think that's great, actually. I'm being sincere.
One other thing I do think people should consider, if it's a big windfall, and in general, anyone that has a high net worth, I think should consider additional liability insurance and what's known as like an umbrella policy.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have one because we have like rental properties and just like a number of things where it can be helpful. They're not super expensive. Like, it's funny, Andrew and I were just talking about how expensive insurance is lately. It's ridiculously expensive. It's one of the few policies that I feel like is actually reasonably priced, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth considering if you have larger assets now as a result of this windfall. And if you don't have a windfall, but you just have large assets, you might want to look into an umbrella policy. I would definitely get one quoted by wherever you have your other insurance already, because you might be surprised at how inexpensive it is.
I feel like mine was really inexpensive. Like this is totally off the top of my head, but I want to say it was like $10 a month or something.
Oh, that is like really...
I could definitely be wrong about that.
Yeah.
But I remember a very smart friend.
Was it me?
It was a different smart friend.
Oh, okay. You looked at me like it was me or something.
Well,
I misread that moment. Sorry.
I feel like I always have this idea in my head that we just did this episode however long ago about bad advice that you get from coworkers, your friend's dad, etc. And so I'm like, well, a coworker one time told me, but he's pretty smart. Umbrella insurance, once you get to around $1 million in assets, not $1 million in net worth, but if you have $1 million in asset, that's a general guideline for when you want to have umbrella insurance. And that comes like relatively quickly for a lot of people. If the average home value is, I don't know what it is in the US, somewhere between 400 and 600, I would guess.
Yeah. So just as another comparison, our umbrella policy is $49 a month.
Amazing.
Which to me seems affordable compared to my other policies, at least. So $10 sounds better, though.
That might not be true.
That's okay.
Listen, did you know that like literally anybody can go buy a microphone?
Yeah. Did you hear the disclaimer? Okay. Let's finish up with some common pitfalls to avoid when you get a windfall. Pitfall, windfall. A lot of falls happening there.
Well, one would be don't quit your job without like a real solid financial plan. And I always think about this. Did you watch Blossom when you were growing up?
Yes, I did.
Loved that show.
Such a good show. I forgot about it. But yes, I watched it
religiously. It was just a sitcom, and there was like how there used to be a thing to have like a dumb character.
Mm-hmm,
and her brother was named Joey, I think. And it was like the shtick was that like he was kind of dumb, and he was going to sign this contract to play baseball and get paid $10,000. And he goes, and I think his dad wanted him to go to college and he wanted to play baseball. And he goes, Dad, it's $10,000. I could live on that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I think about that all the time.
It was Joey Russo. I just remember him like saying his name that way. But that's Joey Lawrence. Remember? I mean, I had a huge crush on him when I was a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't be a Joey.
Yeah. Blossom is Mayim
Bialik. Yeah.
Bialik. Yeah. Okay. I thought that. And I was like, man, I like every now and then like see things she posts and I really like her.
Don't know about the future. That's anybody's guess.
Such a good show. So yeah, don't quit your job before you know what's going on. I always feel like at work, people would ask questions like, if you won the lottery, would you still work here? And I'm like, well, this is awkward because we're all at work. And like, you know, it's like, are you trying to test my commitment to this role or company or something? Okay. The other pitfall is do not start spending extravagantly. This is what the Price Avocado Toast did. And they talk about it, right? Yeah. So resist the urge to make large, crazy purchases like some fancy car and I shouldn't say it's not like Price of Avocado Toast, Justin Haley. They did a bunch of like smaller things, but again, back to the like, pause and, but pause and take some time and think about what your priorities are and what you should responsibly do with this money. You just want to avoid making any like impulsive spending, impulsively quitting your job. Like just don't be impulsive, right?
Right.
It can be tempting when it feels like in that Joey example, when you're like, oh, $10,000 is so much money. And no, you cannot live on $10,000 even back then for the rest of your life. And yeah, just be careful.
I remember watching that as a kid. I don't know why it stuck in my brain so hard, but I just feel like it got such a big laugh on the show. And like, I think my parents chuckled, and I being, 8 or whatever, I was like, why is that funny? I think you could live on $10,000. Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I think if it were me, if I got a big windfall, well, this is what I do when I have any money come my way. I feel like I write it down too. It just helps you from like being impulsive, like write down where it's going to go, what your plan is for it.
Yeah. I thought you just meant you like write down the amount of money. And I was like, okay, if that works for you, you could try that, guys. I don't know if it's going to work, but let us know if that works.
Put it on a Post-it.
$1 million. Just write it like 100 times on the chalkboard.
And then it's magic. You don't have to pay any taxes. It'll last forever. And that's the trick. Just kidding. But I mean, again, when it comes to extravagant spending, I think even again, like with my annual bonus every year, I'd start thinking about it and I'm like, oh, I'm going to fund our IRAs, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And then I have to sit down and write it all. I'm like, okay, well, hang on. Let me see how much it's going to be after taxes. Okay. And then once I fund our IRAs, like here's how much is left. And then like it always goes a lot quicker than I think, even as someone who sort of marinates in this kind of world all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is another pitfall, is just forgetting / failing to understand the tax obligations and save for them. And it's like the money's gone and you owe taxes. And that's a huge issue, right? That's a very scary situation because then you're in some sort of, default or additional debt. But it is a pitfall. People forget about it, spend all the money, and then come tax time, don't have what they owe. So
there was someone I follow on Instagram. They've turned off their account now, or I would shout them out, but their husband was trading cryptocurrency and didn't realize that like they were incurring a tax obligation every time. Do you know what I mean? They were like, oh no, I wasn't like selling investments. I was just like trading currency, and then didn't understand. Yeah. Didn't know at the end of the year. And so then, if you trade again and then all of a sudden the value drops, but you owe money on all those gains. It can be tricky.
Yeah, it could be a bad situation. Yeah. So, I mean, another big pitfall is, we alluded to this earlier, but in general, if you have a big sum of money and people know about it, you're going to get hit with all sorts of like investment requests from like, hey, do you want to invest in my business, to someone telling you that, they've got some great lead on some new crypto that you should invest in. And so, it could be a personal request. It could be some sort of a kind of investment scheme, and it could be legit, but very high risk, right? And so you don't, I do not recommend you take any windfall and put it into, high risk, overly complex investment schemes. We are big proponents of like, low cost total market index funds. And that's where I would put a windfall after I finished all the other things we talked about, and, like paying off debt, et cetera, having an emergency fund. But often people that get windfalls are targets of people pitching them for all sorts of things. Again, from like investing in a family's business to, some sort of Ponzi scheme, or just a super high risk like hedge fund that could do really, really well or could go bust overnight. And so I would be very, very cautious of taking any of that windfall. And again, doing anything that you wouldn't do with your paycheck, right? It's like, because you got some big chunk of money, you all of a sudden feel like you're like, I don't know, in Vegas and like a high roller, and you can do things you wouldn't normally do. Like, don't do things you wouldn't normally do until they're, incredibly well thought out. And, if your dream was always to like relocate your family to Hawaii or Europe or somewhere and invest in, living in a new place, like that's great. That's something you've always wanted to do and you've thought about and you do very thoughtfully. That's not investing in some sort of, sketchy crypto investment plan that someone told you is going to double your money. You don't even need to double your money. You just got a windfall. So like, be careful, be safe, be risk averse. Be risk averse
is my motto. That I would write on a Post-it and put on my desk.
Yeah. Makes me think of that cheer in high school of like, be aggressive. And they're like, BEAGGRESIVE, be aggressive. I probably got that off beat, but like, it would be like BRISK, be risk averse, BERISK. It's not the greatest cheer, but
we'll work on it.
Okay. Moving on.
All right. Another one to be wary of is being too generous. And this is why, again, you don't tell people when you get a bunch of money, which is funny. It's funny that we keep saying that because it feels a little bit at odds to our general mantra of talk to your friends about money. Yeah. But just wait.
I agree. And we're and be thoughtful. We're not saying don't tell anybody, right? But be thoughtful about who you're telling. If you have a dicey relationship with certain people in your family who have historically come to you for money when they're not managing money themselves responsibly, right? Like, just use your own judgment of, who you tell and who you don't tell, and who you are generous with. And I think the point here is not to like, that's great if you want to be generous with your money. It's about being too generous to where are like giving it all away before you've taken care of your own priorities and, paid off debt that you have and things like that.
Right. Exactly. Oh my gosh, I can't think of the band, but there's some band that has a song and it's called like, I'm going to get my mama a house. And I love it so much.
I
love
know
it.
What that is.
Da-na-na-na-na-na,
but if you figure it out, sing it for us.
I'm going to get my mama a house. And just, that's great. You should totally buy your mom a house. But like after you have an emergency fund and you paid off all your debt, and you've taken care of.
And you have a house. Because otherwise you're going to be living in your mom's house. So if that's fine, if that's part of your plan, then great.
Exactly. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you who the band is.
Is the name of the song actually I'm Gonna Get My Mama a House? Or is that just the lyrics?
I don't know. I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Okay, the name of the band is...
Is it Teddy Bears?
Teddy Bears. I was just reading the lyrics. I got rubles in a shoebox from the Russian mob. That's a very different financial situation.
How did you hear this song?
What?
Is this like a band you listen to?
I don't know.
I've just never heard of the Teddy Bears before.
I'm not the DJ in my house. I only get to listen.
If you get a windfall, you could be the DJ. You could like buy some DJing equipment.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Okay.
Anyways, feel free to buy your mom a house after you have met all of your other financial obligations and you yourself have a place to live. It wouldn't be the first thing that I would do.
Okay. Another pitfall is that when people get a windfall, they often think they need to like go do these big extravagant things, which we've just told you not to do. And they don't do the basic things, which we have told you to do. So I just want to remind you of like a specific one of like, you should definitely be maxing out your 401k if you just got a big windfall and you all of a sudden can afford to do that. That might, yes, mean it's coming out of your paycheck. And if you need to use the windfall to cover your expenses as a result, that's okay. You're trading one for the other. And so the idea of like not doing your best to utilize tax advantaged accounts like a 401k, a HSA, etc., is a big mistake, which people can often make because, again, they're thinking of a windfall as like fun money sometimes instead of like, no, it's just money to make your life easier down the road. Doesn't mean some of it can't be fun money. You could set aside a percentage of some fun money, but you got to like take care of ideally you're taking care of some other stuff.
Yeah.
First.
It's amazing that we've made 100 plus episodes of a highly entertaining podcast about personal finance because, to be very honest with you, all of the best personal finance advice is extremely boring. It is.
Yeah.
Fund your emergency fund, pay off your debt, put money in your 401k.
It's the same ingredients. You and I were talking about this when you were in Atlanta it's like I often think of like Mexican food, which I love. There's like 10 ingredients, right? And you can get a quesadilla, you can get a taco, you can get a burrito. And I'm not like, don't come at me with like, I'm sure there's like way more complex foods,
right?
Know, whatever. But I'm just oversimplifying it to say we could make the same reference to like, I don't know, Italian food, whatever you want. But like, it's like 10 ingredients that can make 100 different dishes. And that is the way that, personal finance is in many ways there's like, 5 to 10 basic things like spend less than you make, invest the difference, avoid lifestyle inflation. Like we always talk about the same things and sort of different flavors and dishes that we put together. So
Right.
I think a final pitfall, and this is coming from someone who's like not a big fan of hiring financial planners, but to be clear, I'm not a big fan of hiring commission-based financial planners or advisors that take a percentage of everything they're managing. So like the assets under management model, which is also called AUM at times. I am a big fan of paying someone hourly and hiring like an hourly fiduciary, but it can be helpful to hire the right professional and hopefully hourly advice around finances, tax, sometimes even legal professionals. And on the financial one, like we've talked about Nectarine. Liz, you actually did like
I secret shopped them. Yeah,
she secret shopped them. And so we'll include in the show notes, we did a whole episode on like why we don't love financial planners and the sort of types we do like and support. And then in that we talked a little bit about Nectarine. And then Liz, you have a whole episode where you talk about like your secret shopping of Nectarine and using their, getting connected to an hourly financial coach, advisor, planner, et cetera, through their network.
Right.
And so we'll include a link in the show notes to that also.
Yeah, we don't think it's a good idea to hire someone, for most people, for either of us for sure, to hire someone who's going to take 1% of your growth every year. But I think it's actually a great idea. I recommend Nectarine all the time. It's just one and done. Like set up a 1 hour, or maybe you need 2 sessions to get through everything you want to talk about. But then they tell you what to do, and then you just go do it because you're smart and capable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you better believe I'm going to hire someone, even if I won $20 million, I'm going to hire someone hourly before I give them like 1% of $20 million, right? Like, you find someone good. And if you win $20 million, like no offense to Nectarine, but I'm not actually suggesting you like go to Nectarine. That's a lot of money. And I think there's, I don't know. I'm not saying they could be fine for that. But I think it's, relative. Like, do your research, figure out, who is right for you.
Yeah. I think I have one more thing that we didn't cover about windfalls. You should carve out okay, I feel like we waved our arms around a lot. Like, don't spend all your money. Like, don't blow it all. But like, blow it a little. Like,
that's why I agree. A percentage of some fun money.
Take again, plot it all out, write it down, not just the amount, but what you're going to do with it. And then, so I'll give you an example. When my annual bonus gets paid out, I like to go out to a really nice dinner. And that's a very small amount of that bonus amount, right? Like, it's thousands of dollars. I go out and spend $500 on a nice dinner.
Okay. So I would say though, as a general rule, and I'm just making this up.
Yeah.
But I'm just off the cuff. But I totally agree. Fun money, go do something fun. I would always do the same when I would get my bonus at work. I'd sort of, buy myself something special. Something that was maybe just like the road, a little bit unnecessary, but that I wanted, and, just a little bit.
A little splurge, treat yourself.
The rower's not a good example because that's an investment in your health, I put that in a different category. Yeah. But I like as much as I talk about don't ever pay a financial planner 1%, pay yourself 1%. Mm-hmm. So 1% is actually a good number. So 1% is a solid number. If your windfall, which could be a windfall to many people, is $1,000, your 1% is only $10, but also $1,000 doesn't get you super far today. Mm-hmm. Yes, that can be a lot of money to many people, but if that is a lot of money, use it responsibly and do something small for yourself, but don't take $1,000 and spend half of it on something that's unnecessary, is our point. So I kind of actually like the 1% rule. So look, if you win $1 million, 1% is 10,000. So go spend $10,000.
Immediately. Yeah, fun. Exactly. Yeah, you can do it guilt-free.
And don't feel bad because it's 1%. And if you win, for people that can't do 1%, if you win $10,000 or if you get $10,000, that's $100. I think of the price of avocado toast, right? They received a $600,000 settlement. 1% would be $6,000. That's great. Go on a fun vacation. Go do something, kind of splurge on something that you wouldn't otherwise do. But I like the idea of it shouldn't be more than 1% or a couple percentage points of what that windfall is.
Now I'm very, I feel in my head, I was thinking 5 to 10, but again,
but that's a lot, right? Yeah.
Because if it's $1,000, that means you spend $100 on yourself and then you spend the other $900 responsibly. Maybe after taxes.
It depends what your situation
also,
is.
After taxes makes a big difference.
Yes, after taxes. But also I'd say it depends on your situation. If you're in extreme debt and you're paying somebody the other day was telling me about a friend they met with and they were paying 135% interest on something. You're never going to get out from under that. So if you get $1,000, throw it at that. And take your $10, take your 1%, take your $10, get yourself a little treat from Chipotle.
A bagel.
Or go to Chipotle, get a burrito, or without guacamole, because with guacamole, it's going to be more than $10.
Yeah.
And then go, or go to Starbucks and get yourself a
one coffee.
Yeah, one coffee, one Frappuccino, venti size. And yeah. So anyways, you get the idea. But I agree with you, Liz. Do something fun. Just be careful about how much fun and think about, think for a minute before you do too much fun. Yeah. I sound like not a lot of fun, right?
No, I mean, I think generally, I've said this before, but I think almost all personal finance advice, it often falls in one of two categories of hey, stop spending your money or don't be afraid to spend your money. And I tend to get really sucked into doing the responsible thing. Okay, when I write it out on my little Post-it, I'm okay, IRAs, okay, this much goes into 401k, okay, we're going to donate this much, we're going to do this. And then I forget. I'm oh yeah, we should do something. We should go out to dinner.
Treat ourselves.
Take a trip or get guacamole on the burrito.
And I mean, I will finish with one thought related to all of this. And, we said tell no one, but there might be, we do also, to your point earlier, Liz, we do say there's a lot of value that comes in talking to your friends about money. Just be very thoughtful. Choose a friend like me, where I'm the one who's oh, I don't know if you should even spend 1% on something fun. Just, you know what I mean? You'll ask people, you have people that you ask about money and they'll be oh yeah, go do that. They're going to be that friend versus, other friends that are perhaps you're more, I don't want to use the word responsible, but maybe more risk averse friend that's going to like give you the more conservative advice about what to do with that thing. And so if you do need to confide in someone, like do it thoughtfully. And maybe you need a little person in your ear saying like, just, be careful. Like this is a tricky time. And, you might want to think about, XYZ and all that. And so if you are going to talk to someone, like be strategic on who you do share that news with and make it the person that's going to like hold, kind of hold you more accountable to doing the right thing with that windfall.
If you want to spend 1%, ask Maggie. If you want to spend 5%, ask me.
Or maybe up to 10%, it sounds like.
It depends.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. Get wild.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch, I don't know why this just popped in my head and not earlier. Did you ever, oh my gosh. You know how there's a bunch of shows like House Hunters, like Tiny House Hunters, International House Hunters. There's one called Lottery House Hunters or Lottery.
Oh, I don't think I've really watched it, but I'm like roughly aware of it. Have you watched it?
Just one afternoon I spent with family and we watched like 6 episodes in a row of different lottery winners buying a house. And it was amazing.
And are they going big? Like, are they all of a sudden getting like a much...
Yeah. I mean, some of them went really big and then some didn't. Like there was one family I remember in Alabama and they won, I don't know, $80,000 or something. So it wasn't even, it's not like they were buying this huge mansion, but it was really heartwarming and wholesome to see. I mean, it really changed their life. And I want to say one of the family members was disabled and they were able to move into a house that accommodated them better. And I don't know. Anyways, that's my recommended follow-up.
Okay. Watch that show.
Oh, it was so good. Okay. I'm getting off topic now.
Okay. Well, I hope this was helpful. And just as a reminder, some of the things we said were like, take your time, pause for a moment, think about this, even before you spend your 1 to 10% on something fun. Like just give it a beat, give it 48 hours, really look into the taxes and plan ahead for that. Figure out what your goals are, create a plan, avoid some of these common pitfalls. And then if you need to, seek some professional advice or call the 1% friend that you know that will tell you to only spend 1% on yourself. You're really spending it all on yourself, to be clear. We're just saying like the fun part.
Yeah.
But yeah, hope this is helpful. We appreciate you guys listening and we know your time is limited and valuable. We always love it when you spend some of it with us. If you've liked this episode, share it with a friend, right? Mm-hmm. Share it with a friend or family member. That's like one of the most helpful things you can do for, I was trying to think if that's for us or if that's for your friend, but I think it's for your friend.
I think it can be 2 things.
Yeah, it can be both. 2 things can be true.
It is one of the best ways if you would like to help our podcast to reach new people, to sharing it with someone else. And then also if you're someone who's trying to maybe start having some conversations with friends about money, sharing a podcast episode is a great way to dip your toe in.
And this is a good one. Share it with a friend and say like, hey, next time we have lunch, let's discuss like if we would tell each other if we got a big windfall.
Yeah.
Or like what we would spend our fun money on. What we would spend our fun 1%.
Exactly. I like it. You can also leave us a written review. We always love that. It makes our little fireworks go off in our brain because we feel appreciated and loved. And if you're not subscribed, you should subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. It's a good idea.
You can always send us a text or a voicemail at 404-981-3370 or hit us up on Instagram. Let us know if you have any thoughts on windfalls that we missed, if we missed anything, or if you have any thoughts back in reply. Yeah, sorry. Or if you have any other thoughts. Okay.
About literally anything, we would like to hear it.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be about windfalls.
If you watch the Lottery House Hunter show, please DM me immediately.
If you were a big fan of Blossom when you were younger,
my gosh,
let us know.
Ain't no good a reason for getting all depressed.
I kind of forgot that song, but it's coming back to me as you sing it. You want to sing our way out?
I don't remember the rest. Okay, but then she's like bopping around in a little sunflower hat.
Yeah. I loved her style. I think it influenced some of my style now that I think about it.
Oh, I'm sure.
There were some like kind of funky things to work. Kind of Blossom-esque. Okay, we should wrap this up. It's been lovely.
I think we did it.
Thanks, Liz. We did it. We did it and then some, as we normally do.
I actually think we showed remarkable restraint in this episode.
I agree. There's many tangents that I stopped myself on. Right? You guys don't realize all the things we didn't say. We avoided many common podcast pitfalls in this episode.
If with no self-restraint, I would literally just live podcast my entire day. Be like, and now I'm having breakfast. Oh, the strawberries a little mushy, but I'm still going to eat them. Just wanted to let you all know.
Okay, we've done it. Sorry about the mushy strawberry. Bye, Liz.
Bye, Maggie.